para que nos hablen un poquito de Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Simios.
¡Ruido, gente, por favor! ¡México! ¡Reciban estos grandes actores! ¡Ay, guys! Where are you?
Nice to meet you. Please take a seat.
On our comfy couch.
En nuestro bonito
Hi, guys.
sillón que yo ya me aburrí.
How are you?
Welcome, guys. Are you already recovering from the experience of the Thunder stage? I understand that you
my
come
ears
from
are
there.
still ringing.
Yeah. Did you feel how the stage trembles with the sound?
That's how you watch the movie. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's like the experience of now the new rooms you have at the cinema that
Yeah.
everything shakes and you have water splattering all over.
It's almost 4D. It's
All
almost-
senses.
4DX, yeah.
And guys, is this your first time in Mexico?
First time.
Not for me.
Not for you?
Yeah, I was here for press not long ago, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's nice to be back.
Nice to be back. And how's your second experience and your first one in Mexico so far?
Fantastic.
Yeah?
Unfortunately, I'm here for like 12 hours or something, so I didn't get to see much, but I'll come back.
That's the thing with these trips. But are you feeling the love from CCXP, everybody?
Come
Make some
on!
noise for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
One of my favorites, in fact, and I knew was that it was for you too. So am I right?
Yeah.
And how do you feel right now being part of it?
Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, it's a thrill and an honor, honestly. So
Did you ever imagine, or maybe when you, no, never, maybe seeing the first movie, did you play with some toys about it? Or?
I didn't play with toys, but I was born in 1980. So when I watched that movie, I must have been a little kid.
Yeah.
And I'm sure the ideas went over my head. You know what I mean? I don't have some memory of like, oh my God, we're on Earth, but I do remember the images. You know what I mean? I remember the feral humans in the grass, and, all those apes on horses, and I remember the beach scene. And we do almost our versions of all those scenes in this movie. So it's a thrill. And our first day of shooting, our very first day of shooting was Freya and Owen on the beach with these giant horses behind them in the water and the crashing waves.
Wow.
And we're all looking at each other and it's like, holy crap, we are making a Planet of the Apes movie. It was amazing.
And Freya, how about you? What was your relationship with the franchise of the Planet of the Apes in general before you came into the movie?
Well, I had gone to the cinema with my dad to watch Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I was probably about 13, and I just remember leaving asking him a million questions because I just didn't understand how the apes, how that had been done. So it's amazing that I now know exactly how it's done.
She knows all
All
the
the ins
sausage
and
is
outs
made.
of the whole. Wow.
And Wes, Planet of the Apes, the franchise, has some great movies. I wondered what elements you thought were essential from both the original movie from '68 and from the last trilogy.
Well,
Apart from Apes, of course.
I've talked about this before, but the thing that makes these movies special, someone told me once, like, they are one of the few thinking person's blockbusters, right? Meaning that there is big spectacle, big entertainment, roller coaster ride stuff, but there's also real profound ideas in it. It's really about something that you can think about. It's about us as human beings and our species on the planet, So that was the main thing that we wanted to try to continue on is to tell a great story with new characters, keep kind of our tether, stay respectful and honor what came before, especially the last Caesar trilogy,
Right.
Because Caesar is very much a character in this movie still. But we wanted to give people something new in this awesome legacy of movies,
That's what I was about to ask, because being in this new Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes sequel from the Matt Reeves trilogy, do you think that César, or what other elements do you think they relate with the first movie, with the original one?
That's a good question. I mean, it's always about, the dynamic between apes and humans,
Yeah.
right? But the thing about Caesar as a character, like, he's a great model. He's a fantastic leader.
Yeah.
He's compassionate. He's loyal. There's all these great human traits that we all aspire to be. So he's the best of us. up there, you know,
Right.
and that's very much what we tried to carry over into this with our new character of Owen, or who Owen plays, Noah. He's a somewhat of a version of Caesar, very much new and innocent, but you'll see as he stumbles through this adventure that he has, he's going to learn who that character Caesar was and what he means and what he represents, and he's going to take on those ideals, I think, very personally, you know.
Freya, in the movie, you have to react to actors wearing not ape costume as they used to do in the 60s. How was to react to those actors wearing dots or things like that on their faces?
Honestly, I became very used to it, and you know, they'd gone through ape school and they really did physically become the apes. So I didn't need to imagine that there were apes in front of me because they did it so well. It was you know, the tricky part of it was when I had to do scenes without them, because you know, I was just looking at thin air and I had no one's eyes to look into. I had to remember all my eye lines, all the technical stuff, and then, you know, do the acting bit. So that was more tricky than staring at their faces with dots. That became surprisingly normal.
I'm sorry, ape school?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Is that the official term of?
Yeah, that's what we called it, yeah.
You go through
Ape
school
camp, ape
to
school.
learn how to be an ape.
Yeah, and they sit around for 6 or 7 weeks. They're sitting around down in this basement. There's a little dark basement in the stage, and they work with Alain Gauthier, who is he started in Cirque du Soleil, so he has a very good knowledge of, you know, movement and all that kind
Right.
of stuff. So we brought him in to just get them to internalize that whole ape thing, so they're not thinking about it on set. So that when they're playing with Freya,
Right.
they just are, and they can just focus on the stuff. But it's wild because they sit there for hours and hours every day just improvising scenes and eating like an ape and just doing ape things. And I remember wandering down there one day, and all these apes come walking up to me, and like, you know, it's intimidating, you know, it's weird.
Yeah,
but
my
you get over it real
first-
quick.
My first day in Australia, once I got the role, I think I was like one of the last people to be cast, and I walked into this basement, and they was just a bunch of humans pretending to be chimpanzees. It was the most bizarre thing ever.
It's weird.
It's one way to begin a job.
That's amazing.
And I gotta say, even cutting the movie, it's a little weird. You know, I'm cutting a movie, and I'm seeing these guys, and he's got dots all over his face, and a big camera floating here, and you're like, oh my God, is this gonna work? You know, and then for months and months, we're just cutting the movie this way, you know, and you make these choices, and it gets over to the artists at Weta, these amazing artists, and then a couple months later, a shot comes in.
Yeah.
And it just blows you away. You're like, oh my God, it looks real. And then suddenly you realize this is gonna work. It's gonna be okay. And Andy Serkis, when I talked to him early on, he told me that. He's like, just trust the process, it's gonna work. Just make sure you're honest and truthful in the moment. Everything else will work out. Wow.
Uh-huh. Well, in Kingdom, the world has changed a lot since the last time we saw it. Now the apes have built their society on top of ruins of ours. How was for you guys to create a new scenery for the society?
That was honestly a really appealing part of this process. For whatever reason, I've been playing in these kinds of worlds for a long time. I'm drawn to them for some reason. But what I loved about the original 68 Planet of the Apes is that time had eroded away almost all evidence of our world, so that we had that surprise when the Statue of Liberty is there and we're, oh my God, we're on Earth, right? So to play with that idea in our version, where we're only a few hundred years into that process, where the buildings are still there, but you see how they're slowly collapsing and eroding away and overgrowing, and they almost look like mountains. So it was really fun to think of a world, our world, that kind of almost disappears into the landscape and becomes this beautiful world that personally I'd love to go explore in. But like haunting underneath that is this terrible tragedy of the fall of mankind and all the mistakes we made. So this is just kind of the stuff of the Planet of the Apes franchise that's just so fun to play with, you know?
Speaking of that, even just watching the trailer, we can notice that the world has kind of fallen apart, and it's almost impossible to distinguish which city we're talking about, right? Like it's just a city, but we don't know exactly if it's like New York, if it's a bit like it's a bit lost in time. as acting in such a situation, is there like an emotional weight to working in a place like you can't really know where it is because of how destroyed the world was? Like how do you involve yourself emotionally as an actress with a collapsed world?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me at the beginning, when I read the script, I didn't want her to become like there was a world in which she could just be this liar and this mystery. And so for me, playing her, I needed to find something more meaningful than just that part of the film.
Right.
And so it was basically me just asking you a bunch of questions and basically creating the backstory with Wes and Jason and Joe. I did do a little bit of like Googling into the people that have created these buildings for if the world ends and seeing what it would be like to live in one of those.
Wow.
I was just trying to, basically build a backstory and make it more personal and figure out what had happened to the people that she loves and cares about and just kind of humanize it so that then everything that happens in the film, I felt like there was more behind it than just what was on the page.
Right.
Yeah, and like in a weird way, we shot this out in real locations, mostly out in Australia. And it was a very beautiful locations that we were in all the time. So, it wasn't like we were standing on blue screen stages, for instance, right? You had a lot around you to react to, and in a weird way that worked for us because this is their world. They don't have some reaction of, this isn't new to them, right? So they just treated it like it was natural, in a way, right?
Right.
So shooting in these real locations around Australia was actually, it was awesome,
Well, I think that maybe living this kind of stuff and also learning how to be an ape and see how humans can really destroy everything. Personally, this movie moves something or maybe change your mind in different ways about how we're doing to our planet and if we really relate to apes, in how they move, in how they think, in how they are a community.
We see ourselves in them, right?
Yeah, so did something maybe change in your mind or in your heart about us? Us as humans, of course.
I mean, these movies do kind of remind you what it is to be human in a way, even though they're apes, and for better and worse, right? I mean, like we talked about with César, it's like he's a character that we would aspire to be, and Proximus is maybe a character that we say we don't want to be that. You know what I mean? It's a cautionary tale that way, Yeah,
we need both sides always.
That's right, but it's not kind of it's not pro ape and anti-human. You know what I mean? It's both, right? These characters that Freya and Owen play, they both have ideas about who the other is in the very beginning of the story, and as the story unfolds, they change each other. For the better. And we ultimately end on there is some interesting ending. It'll be interesting to see people watch it and come to their own conclusions about what it all means. But in my mind, it's an optimistic ending that there's hope for peace between the species. But there's going to be obviously a lot of drama and turmoil moving forward if we're lucky enough to tell more stories.
The way you said, in my mind, it's optimistic. It sounds like it's tragic. Like it sounds like it's going to be the entirely opposite, and it's a good thing you're not spoiling it for us because
Try not to.
We're excited to see it.
There are lots of surprises in this movie, even though the trailers have showed some stuff. There's still lots of cool, big ideas that I think people will enjoy,
Awesome.
and have fun talking about after the movie's over. There's lots of ideas, and we talked before backstage where we tried very hard in the movie to give you 2 + 2, not 4. Right? It's a kind of movie that you want to lean in, do the math yourself a little bit, kind of involve yourself in it, So there's a lots of thought and process and care and just ideas in this movie that people can hopefully, chew on.
We're here at Omelette Stage. There's a scene at the beginning of the movie with some eggs being destroyed. How many eggs were destroyed during that specific scene?
None, because they're all CG.
Oh no!
How many eggs were damaged?
None.
No eggs were
Wow.
harmed in the filming
Yeah,
of
you'll
this movie.
you'll see a shot there when that broken egg. That's CG. That's 100% CG.
No way.
The first 10 minutes of the movie is almost 100% CG.
Wow.
There's
It's
just for all the
crazy.
geeks out there that love visual effects. There's about 30 or 35 minutes of 100% full CG. Every tree, every blade of grass, every leaf blowing in the wind or bug flying through the air, it's all CG.
Wow.
So, obviously we're working with the guys who made Avatar. So it was fun to play with literally the best people in the world who
I
do
can
this
imagine,
stuff.
yeah.
It's really incredible stuff.
Freya, you're doing now a very different character because it's a very different world. Is there anything in this movie that you've never imagined you would be doing in your character?
I mean, I never thought not to go back to it again, but I never thought I'd be having to do scenes with no one in front of me. That was, I remember one of my first days shooting, I had to hug the air, and I really did feel like a loser. She's quite cool in the movie in moments, but there's some footage of me where you would go, yeah, that's unfortunate.
That's sad.
Yeah, a bit sad.
She had a tough job. She had a very tough job. The apes had a tough job, but the human had a very tough job in this movie.
Wow. Well, I think that can be intimidating, and of course CGI is amazing, but there were real locations in this movie. How intimidating that can be for you guys as actors, having like an incredible space around you that it's not maybe a forum, that's maybe just what it is, nature.
I personally was grateful to it because it does some of the work for you. You're not having to imagine it. You're just in it, and you can kind of lose yourself into the world when that is around you, and when it's real as well. When it's not it's not built. There's real nature there. Like we were battling with the leeches constantly on the film, and the spiders and everything because it was in Australia. But yeah,
All the poisonous animals.
Yeah, lots of poisonous things that can kill you. But there were times where I even, when you're doing a scene and it's all getting stressful or whatever, and you can just look into the distance and there's this beautiful view. And I don't know, for me, I love being on location. It kind of, I find it really helpful, more than intimidating.
We all do, right? I mean, it's like even the camera people, they have something to shoot. We get inspired. That's my main thing is that we try to, even though it's a very technical process making this movie, we try very hard to make it spontaneous feeling. So it feels like it has a life to it. You know what I mean? We're not just kind of. That's why I don't like stage work. For the most part, we have to do it, of course. It's just the way it is. But like, there's something about being out there in the wild with the wind and the elements and the dirt in your fingernails and the sweat. It breathes a life into the movie that you can't create otherwise. You know what I mean? And so we love it. It's hard. Freya's running around in the river all day. It's tough work, but I think it adds something to the final image that you can't pay for. You can't.
In that sense, your past working directly with VFX, was it an asset or a burden in that sense to try to make the movie feel alive, or was it an asset to bring the quality up?
Yeah. I mean, some people know I was a frustrated visual effects artist in my past. A very humble one. Visual effects is a tool. That's what it is. It's no different than the camera we use, or the lights we use, or the microphones we use. It's just a tool to tell story, right? And that tool can be abused or used well. You know what I mean? And so my experience with it in the past has always been a good one, and I think it helps. I have a common language with all the artists. We can kind of have shortcuts. Also on set, I can help. I can move the camera 3 feet to the right, and I can save us a lot of work. Because I know what the work's involved. It's things like that where there is an efficiency, I think, that probably comes into our movies where we're able to make them faster and sort of cheaper than others might.
Right.
But I don't know. I love this stuff.
It sounds like you do. You speak with a lot of passion about it.
There's a certain ape. There is a orangutan. Am I saying correct? Yeah. Orangutan. Okay. That's like the wise ape, and we had seen something like that in the previous movies. What did you learn about the apes that made you choose this kind of ape to be the wise guy? And what did you learn about apes in a general way that you didn't know before?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, obviously I watched a lot of apes when I was starting this process, in nature documentaries, all those things. I know it's sad and it's controversial, but I went to the zoo and watched some of the animals there, and it is really amazing how similar they are to us. You see life behind their eyes. You see ourselves in them, and so that was really interesting. It was humbling, actually, that we're not that different. You know what I mean? There's just a little bit. Our brains work just a little differently, and it allowed us to achieve all this. But these animals still care. They still feel. They still have emotions. They're sad when their companions die. It's amazing, honestly. And I hope maybe these movies inspire people to go learn more about these great apes, because they're fantastic creatures,
How about you, Freya? Did you learn anything?
Yeah. I mean, Owen was like a...
Oh, it was pretty close to an ape, yeah.
Yeah. He is fully... I don't think he can let it go, honestly. Like, I went to dinner with him in New York, and he came towards me as an ape. No shame at all. Like, didn't care that there are people around. Just
Even to the point where, speaking on that, Owen told me that he had to go do another movie after us, right? So we're out there for whatever it is, 9 months, 8 months. He's doing his ape thing. And he went out and did another movie. And on his first day, the director pulls him aside. Owen, you're walking like an ape. It's still in him. I think it will never leave. It is in him now. All those actors, because they really it became an internal thing for them.
Right, the
it's
muscle
wild.
memory and moving like that constantly for so long.
He also told me that he went to a sanctuary and he actually got to do sign language with an ape, which that blew my mind. I couldn't believe that.
Communicate with an ape.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Crazy.
I've heard that orangutan was one of the first to learn the sign languages.
Yeah.
I didn't know that you could actually talk to them.
Yeah. And now
Like
they're
an actual
finding all these.
conversation.
There was this news story yesterday of this Indonesian orangutan named Rakus, or Rakus, one or the other. It's the first time we've ever documented this. He was mashing up medicinal leaves and putting it on a wound.
I read that
like a
literally
face
this
mask?
morning.
Yeah, it's
he
the
had
first
he
time
had
it's
a
ever
cup,
been
like a
seen.
cup.
And oddly enough, we have a scene in the movie that we did literally that.
You're
Unfortunately,
kidding me.
I'm sorry, it got cut for
Oh.
time, but it'll be on the deleted scenes. But it was wild. It's like we didn't get it that. We're not that far off.
You found out about this story after you shot the scene.
It showed like 2 weeks ago or a week ago.
Wow.
And his name's Rakus.
Wow.
It's like
weird.
it's like okay, weird.
Maybe it's not a coincidence.
You're right. I think it's a good sign.
Speaking of deleted scenes, how much did you not use in your cut here?
How much did I what?
You had to lose.
Had to lose?
How many scenes
The
did you cut
scenes.
out of
Yeah.
How much do you have to cut?
It's painful. It's always painful. So there's 3 minutes of fully finished VFX.
Whoa,
That
I feel you.
yeah. So there's that, but I think there's 35 minutes of deleted scenes.
That's a lot.
One
That's
of them
right.
is my favorite scenes.
I know. I'm sorry. It was all mainly for time and pace, and there's one or two in there that I really missed. One was that it was the scene with you and the apes. It just. I'll talk about it on the commentary about why it ultimately got cut. But these things happen. You shoot them so you cut them. Ultimately, I don't think the people watching the movie will even notice. Nothing feels out of place. But
Right.
it's all about pace and just movement.
Yeah, but for you, having made those scenes, it's like, this was the part where,
yeah, definitely. But that's the first thing you learn making movies. You kill your babies. You have to. You just have to.
There was this phrase like, movies are not finished, they're released.
That's right. That's Kubrick, right? They're
Yeah.
abandoned, not finished.
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah.
Things happen. Things happen. In fact, I want to ask, things happen and shit happens too. So there's a lot of CGI, we already know, but there are also things you have to do as actors that maybe can be risky for you. Can you tell us during this film if something happened you want to share maybe someone, I don't know, maybe he hurt their knuckles because of the positions, something fell off. Can you give us like...
Did we have any? I don't know.
No, nothing.
Because you were running around a lot. I'm surprised, actually.
No, I did go home with my body sometimes looked like I was bruised, very bruised. But I kind of love it when I go home bruised.
That's the kind of actor she is.
I kind of
She uses it.
Yeah, I love it. And I actually have some scars on my knees from just crawling in the reeds.
Oh,
you remember
yes.
that day? Because we were just like...
Yeah, people don't realize all the scenes are her in the grass. Those things will cut you up.
Yeah,
and I
it's
made
like
her run through it
spikes.
over and over again. Wow.
Yeah, and I had my trousers were useless because they just had holes in the knees. But I remember in the scene where I'm going along the cliff side, and we had a wave machine that would come up, and I remember we were doing the first take. The wave come up, I fell to the ground, was sort of like gasping for breath. And then they call cut, and I look at the first AD, and he is standing there like sweating, like stressed out, thinking that he's And I was like, "Don't worry, I'm just doing like the acting thing, you know." But the panic on his face, he thought he'd killed the number 2 actor.
It was a giant dump tank. Because we built this set, you'll see it in the scene, but I mean, it wiped you out, and on camera, it's wild looking.
So fun though. I wanted to do it over and over again.
Well,
sounds like a huge movie.
Commitment.
Sounds so exciting. Yeah.
But with that said, I've had experience with accidents on set, and it makes you realize that we're doing this. Nothing's worth compromising safety. So we try to work really hard to make sure everyone's really safe, and keep things. We never try to, put anyone's safety, behind the movie. It's safety first,
Well, it's me that annoys them because I just don't listen, and I come in and I go, "Excuse me, why is the stunt double down there? Get me down there."
Yeah, she wouldn't let her stunt double do anything. She was always going to go do her stunts.
I think I speak for everybody when I say I'm incredibly excited to watch this movie, guys. Thank you so
Next
much
week
for your
in
time,
cinemas,
guys.
right?
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah.
Next week.
So everybody, give it
Yay!
up please for
Estar
Wes and
ansiosos
for
por
Freya
verla.
and for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Gracias.
Thank you guys
Gracias.
so much. Can we take a quick picture here with you guys and with this audience before we leave?
May I like maybe position as an ape? May I
Yes,
do that?
please. Can we take a picture with you guys and maybe we can try to be our best version of an ape? You
Yeah,
don't have to. You can
I'm
be
gonna
human.
do it. Oh, you're gonna do it too? I love it.